Hello and welcome to today's event, the New Constituent Experience. Los Angeles Transforms Digital Engagement. I am Otto Dahl, a Senior Fellow with the Center for Digital Government and former CIO for the state of South Dakota and former CIO for the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm excited to serve as the moderator for today's session, and I know we're going to have a great session today over the next 60 minutes. Before we begin, a couple of brief housekeeping notes. A recording of this presentation will be emailed to all registrants within 48 hours. You can use the recording for your reference, and feel free to pass along to colleagues. This webcast is designed to be interactive, and you'll be able to collaborate through the Q&A panel at the lower left of your screen. Please send in your questions as they come up throughout the presentation. Our speakers will address as many of these as possible towards the end of today's webinar. If you would like to download a PDF of the slides from this presentation, you can do so by clicking on the Webinar Resources widget at the bottom of the console. Also during today's webinar, you'll be able to connect with your peers via LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Please use hashtag GovTechLive to connect with your peers across the government technology platform via Twitter. At the close of the webinar, we encourage you to complete a brief survey about the presentation. We'd like to hear what you think. If you're unable to stay for the entire webinar but would like to still complete the survey as much as you're able to, please click the survey widget at the bottom of the console. Otherwise, the survey will pop up once the webinar concludes. At this time, we recommend that you disable pop-up blockers, and if you are experiencing any media player issues, then take a look at our webcast help guide, which can be accessed by clicking on the help button at the bottom of the console. Joining me today to discuss this important topic are Jason Joseph and Ryan Paccini. Jason Joseph is the Information Systems Manager for the Information Technology Agency at the City of Los Angeles. His teams develop and maintain over 80 websites for the citizens of LA that generate millions of visits per month and have been recognized by organizations such as the Center for Digital Government, Acquia, and the Webbies. These teams also act as an advisory group to city department webmasters who need guidance with topics such as website responsiveness, user experience, and ADA accessibility. Marrying the strengths of his teams and his 20 years of government IT experience, Jason's goals is to connect people with their government through websites that are usable, accessible, and engaging. Ryan Paccini is a product marketing leader for Acquia's Drupal Cloud. He has spent 14 years helping brands navigate the changing digital landscape and focus on activities that impact their bottom line. Ryan has been at the forefront of digital transformation across multiple marketing and advertising disciplines and has worked on the front lines. As a sales rep, he has had the chance to listen to customers' challenges and goals. As a result, he's a big believer in open marketing. He's worked at the other guys. And because Ryan knows the results it delivers for customers and partners. Now, in thinking about how to set the stage for today's discussion, the first thing that comes to mind is just how much information, how much data that the government actually runs on. And that information isn't just something that we use to issue someone a permit or a license But it's a lot of information that government needs to get out to the public and their businesses. And so it's a challenge for government to make the ability for its workforce to get information easily into those channels like websites, so that information can be readily accessible by citizens and the business community. And we saw a lot of that, obviously, with the pandemic. There's a tremendous amount of health information that was put out there, not only to the public at large, but also the business community. And so what we need and what has become really critical in government's IT infrastructure is the ability to have a tool that can, if you will, manage all that content. And so content management systems are key to a government being able to manage the process of getting relevant information to where it needs to be, when it needs to be, often at very quick time frames. And so, in thinking today, we felt that one of the best ways for people to understand content management systems is to learn through someone else's experiences, through their journey. And so that's why we're going to learn today what the city of Los Angeles achieved as it upped its digital experience to meet the ever-growing needs of its citizens and residents. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is have Ryan have some opening remarks, and then that'll be followed by Jason, who will talk about their journey. We'll then go into, if you will, fireside chat, and we'll close out the webinar by answering the questions that you have sent in for our speakers. So with that, Ryan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Otto, and thank you everyone for joining us on the line. We're excited to be with you today. Otto, something that you mentioned, the importance of web content management systems. And there's the technology, which is obviously a critical part of building these experiences, but there's also the relationships, which is really what organizations like the City of Los Angeles are after, creating the relationships with their constituents that provide both utility and service to their needs. And content management tools have been at the heart of that for a long time. And at Acquia, we recognize that it's a big undertaking. And that's why I think having Jason share his story today is going to be really enlightening just for wherever you are on your journey. If you feel like you're in a place where you're doing a great job delivering content experiences to your constituents, you feel like you're doing an okay job, or you really need to revamp that, how you deliver great content. And one of the challenges that we hear over and over again from customers here at Acquia, and we have over 4,000 customers, we have a very, very big government practice, given that we're FedRAMP certified and that we support organizations all the way, in the Fed space, like the IRS and many, many state and local government agencies like the City of Los Angeles, is they have a challenge when it comes to content management that is unique in that the big technology companies, like the Adobes and the Oracles of the world, they provide a lot of functionality, but that comes with a cost that's problematic when you're trying to deliver efficiency with your spend and be responsible with how you think about content management for your constituents. And then they see on the other end of the spectrum, the WordPress solutions of the world that they're comfortable with, that they might know from their personal lives, but they don't necessarily meet the needs of a government agency who has specific requirements around security and governance, as well as how they advance their experience, because the worlds of commercial and government are starting to come together. It's one phone, and they look at an experience as an experience. And so how do you deliver that kind of best-in-class experience that's using a tool that's not too expensive, and not have a tool like a WordPress that's going to maybe put your agency at risk around governance and security. And Acquia fits right in the middle, right? We provide all that enterprise functionality and flexibility to scale, as well as the security and governance. So if you haven't heard of Acquia before, we are the commercial company on top of Drupal. The founder of Drupal is also the CTO of Acquia. And so we provide that best of both worlds for organizations like the city of Los Angeles, who are trying to deliver a best-in-class content experience, but also adhere to all the requirements that you may have behind the scenes. And I'm really, really excited to have Jason on the line with us. He's been a trailblazer and a thought leader in terms of not just adopting technology that's going to meet the city of Los Angeles' needs, but the change management that goes into it. Because every great constituent experience that is delivered, there's a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes to get teams aligned, to get stakeholders to buy into the process to be effective. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jason. Jason, thanks again for joining us. Thanks again for your long-term partnership with Acquia. And I'm so excited for folks to be able to hear your story, and both your success metrics as well as lessons that were hard learned. So Jason, over to you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Otto, and good afternoon, everyone. Like I mentioned, I'm going to talk about the digital transformation journey taken by the city of Los Angeles in partnership with Acquia. And then I'll talk about how we gauged our success, talk about our future goals, and some lessons that we learned along the way. So the city of LA began the digital transformation of its website infrastructure in 2015 by trying to address three main issues. First, our website backend infrastructure. All our websites were hosted on a local server farm that was very expensive to maintain and frankly unreliable during periods of high traffic. Second was website delivery. Our websites were using a mix of static HTML and outdated CMS platforms. Our developers were working in a waterfall methodology. All this contributed towards our team being a bottleneck for site releases and site updates. And then finally, website engagement. Our staff was so busy with website maintenance tasks, just keeping the site up, that good design unfortunately became an afterthought. That all started to change in 2015 as we started this journey. In regards to our infrastructure, moving to Drupal on the Acquia cloud immediately gave us a stable and reliable platform. There's several cloud tools that we can rely on now that we never had access to. Moving our sites to the Acquia cloud has now kept our sites up and running during earthquakes, fires, and now pandemics. And in addition, having Acquia's 24/7 support staff have just really been invaluable. Second, Drupal also did wonders to address our issues with website delivery. Our team used to maintain, again, several websites on a variety of different platforms, and all this led to an environment where, one, our developers were struggling with juggling requests for feature updates, content updates, and website releases. Our users were getting frustrated by the time needed to see their content updates. Moving to Drupal provided us with one of the most stable CMS platforms in the industry. And by leaning on a platform like Drupal, our users were empowered to make content updates themselves. It gave them what they wanted, which is to see their content updates quickly. This also freed up our developers who can now focus on just development, leaning on shared code from the Drupal community. And that allowed them to begin making that content more engaging, more user-friendly. They could now have the bandwidth to keep up with website trends. In addition, Acquia's Site Factory allowed us to deploy sites within minutes, and that instantly changed how we were able to communicate with website requests and help move the team into a more agile framework. Our third goal, making websites more engaging, was also helped by this move. By allowing our developers to focus on development, leaning on open source platforms like Drupal, as well as open source design frameworks and templates like Bootstrap and Material Design. Our websites started to become more modern, more user-friendly. Just like engaging with Acquia's experts helped kickstart our journey into Drupal, we also hired UX and UI designers to sit in with staff, to kickstart conversations about user-centered design concepts. We also solicited feedback from the public through online surveys, NPS surveys, studied user analytics and website heat map traffic patterns, and used this data to make data-driven design decisions. And one thing I also want to stress is we did not forget about ADA accessibility. We regularly scan our websites for compliance to ensure that our websites are available and usable to the largest audience possible. And these tools and services helped with our short-term goals and also served our ultimate long-term goal by showcasing our team's ability to get modern and engaging websites out quickly and reliably. We began even stronger relationships with our clients and our residents. And the truth is in the numbers. And the numbers are telling us that we are done well. We began with three Drupal website launches in 2015, and since have launched 65 more, averaging a new Drupal website launch about once a month for the last 5.5 years. And these sites are not only being recognized by our clients and our residents, but nationally as well, getting recognized by organizations like eRepublic, Acquia, and the Webbies. In the future, we're looking to continue our investment in the Drupal platform as we begin our migration to Drupal 9. While we are looking to enhance the web experience in many ways, from data visualizations, maps, social media integrations, open data, our biggest push in the near future will be to introduce personalization to websites through the implementation of the Angelino Account. This will be a new user account that will give residents access to many City of Los Angeles websites and apps with just one user ID and password. You no longer have to juggle different logins for different services. This will also allow us to tailor the web experience for residents who log into our websites. And as we are investing in the web, at the same time, we're growing our presence in digital channels outside the web browser, such as chatbots and digital assistants like Google Home and Alexa. These services can help answer residents' questions by 24/7 by leaning on open data and APIs. And we also want to adopt practices of continual study and improvement. To that end, we will look beyond just user traffic as a metric of success. We're aiming to increase user engagement and NPS scores, Net Promoter Survey scores. And throughout this journey, which we are still on, I would love to share some lessons learned along the way. One is invite outside voices and opinions to join your team. Work with experts in the field to kickstart your team's journey. We began our journey with Acquia's Drupal consultants and UX contractors embedded with our team of developers, and that was invaluable to us. To see experts in the field do their job was really helpful to our team. And now our developers are now creating amazing things on their own. 2, encourage communication with staff before and during the journey, and to take any concerns to heart. Incorporating new ways of work may generate anxiety in staff, and make sure that they are heard, include them in discussions about why change is happening, and try to be specific about the details of how this will affect them. That tends to calm nerves when they have a clear view of where we're heading. And 3, even if you and your team are excited, not all your clients may be ready for that change that you're all excited about. So spend time early in the process explaining to your clients about the changes that's come and begin selling them on the benefits. Really what I'm trying to stress is communication, communication, communication. And with that, I will hand it over to Otto.
Great, thanks Jason and Ryan for those remarks. And what we'd like to do now, folks, is have a discussion, but I encourage you to submit your questions and we'll get to those shortly. And, you know, I'm going to start with diving in a little bit deeper into your journey, Jason. And, you know, one of the things that strikes me is Drupal is obviously a very key component for that open platform is very key in your ability to deliver what I think is an impressive amount of websites meeting all sorts of needs over the journey you guys have had. And so I'm interested in, can you share any changes that you might have made in your team on how you could take advantage of Drupal and what IKEA brings to the table in content management?
How I would have changed my team in retrospect?
Yeah.
I think something that government doesn't take into account as much is the user experience of visitors to your website. You know, we do a great job of collecting data, and I think sometimes we tend to just present that data in long, unreadable lists. I think that's fine. We tend to we tend to be in a tunnel sometimes, and you know, we love our acronyms and our way of doing things, and we think it makes sense to people. And if you've been in government maybe for 10, 20 years, your acronym totally makes sense. The way you describe that solution makes sense. But to a resident that's coming to your site and they just need help with fixing their pothole, you know, it might not be clear to them about how to get help. So where we were excited in the technology because we were a bunch of, you know, computer geeks and government geeks, and we were interested in the platform, definitely. I would have introduced our UX designers and UI designers to join the conversation sooner in the process to help inform how we design our templates, how we communicate all this great information that we had and that we love to communicate to residents, how to do that better. So in retrospect, I would have had those non-technical design staff join the team sooner in the process.
Yeah. You know, Ryan, it seems like Drupal's the special sauce, if you will, that makes a lot of this go. So, you know, can you describe to folks, you know, what are the special capabilities or things that Drupal brings to the table that allows people like Jason and his teams in the city of Los Angeles accomplish what they have?
Well, I think the first thing to recognize, Otto, is that there's a fundamental difference in terms of how organizations like the city of Los Angeles use something like Drupal versus if they use a proprietary solution. So the first thing that needs to be acknowledged is that there's a proprietary route and there's an open source route. And I think, let me just kind of go down that distinction real quickly for folks. Most folks are probably familiar with it. So, but I think it's valuable. Proprietary is you see a niche in the market for web content management. You hire 25 engineers. You write a software script that allows you to do content management, and it's for a specific use case, like a website. Open source is you create the foundational asset, which is around content, not necessarily a website, and the foundational code for that, and then you allow anyone to contribute to that foundational asset and make it better. And so the strength of Drupal is in the community, is in the 35,000 active developers who are looking at it and saying, I need to add something else that's going to make this project better. Jason talked about conversational interfaces. That's a developer who goes in and says, we need a module. That is becoming something that is widely adopted by constituents. So we need to be able to connect our content to that channel. And so Drupal at its core is a content application framework. It's not really even a content management system. It's designed for you to be able to take any content and deploy it on any digital channel. It started with a website. So I think those are the two foundational differences. One, it's a content application framework versus a traditional purpose-built CMS for a specific use case. And two, you have this robust community that's creating all of this innovation, whereas on a proprietary route, you might only have 50 or 100 people who are looking at a CMS and how it gets created. And so that diversity in the community and the vastness of the community is what makes it really special. And then you layer Acquia on top of that, and Acquia provides the enterprise security and governance and expertise specifically to onboard on Drupal. And it's really a winning combination to put those things together.
Yeah, great, great. You know, Jason, what's really struck me is you obviously took on something, some technology that was new. And I'm interested, and I think the audience would be beneficial for them to understand. So you had lots of possibilities that you could tackle first. You know, your digital roadmap, what did you choose first? Were there some dynamics, recommendations that you would give folks out there for what do you try first? Because often we want to have some wins up front for sure, maybe even quick ones, whatever. But I'm interested in what your all strategy was for how you started to move into making use of this powerful tool.
Sure. So we first began with doing a SWOT analysis, you know, checking our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And, you know, what we always came back to is our technology, front end and back end, was really what prevented us reaching our goals as a team. So we chose a modern technology stack. You know, we knew that we needed to be in the cloud. We needed to have a better platform to provide all these services, and we ended up with Drupal and Acquia, which was great. The next step was then bringing an experienced team to help our people. I think I mentioned this in the presentation, and this really was invaluable. Having contractors come in that have worked with Drupal, embedded with our team who were learning Drupal, was really a foundation that helped us in our success. They also brought other kind of new ways of doing work, specifically moving to Agile. Before this, we worked mostly in waterfall, and so we were, you know, working with our clients, and this switch to Agile really helped our conversations with our clients. And instead of, you know, conversations with waterfall tend to end up looking like a long list of demands that we need to fulfill. Moving to Agile turned it into a true conversation. We could have a true dialogue with our clients and say, our clients can come to us and say, we want this website. The next day, we can spin out a website using Acquia Site Factory and say, wait, here's a website you can play with. You said you wanted content, here you go. You know, so that really, that back and forth that we were able to have with our clients really was great. And that was spurred on by contractors on the team that worked with Drupal and worked with Acquia. Finally, I would like to say that one piece of advice I would like to give is to start out small and then set aside time to check in with your clients, your team, and yourself. You know, ask yourself, where are their stresses, and try to address that right away. You're not going to get it perfect every time. So like I said, we started with 3 websites, and, you know, we were all very excited and wanted to do big things and launch everything, but we purposely went slow with it. And now we're in a good groove, and now we can launch one a week if we need to. So those would be my general recommendations.
Cool. You know, what services have you guys put up with this tool set? It might be helpful for folks to get a sense of the diversity of things I believe that you can accomplish.
Sure. So in the last few years, our department has invested a lot of time in 3 different areas, many areas, but I want to highlight 3 of them. One is open data and mapping. This has been huge for us. You know, government is great at collecting data, but this data is usually housed in silos and seemingly owned and guarded by the departments who collect them. Our mayor's office was a great partner with us in helping us change that mindset by launching an online data portal at data.lacd.org, and getting departments to share the data they have with each other and the public on it. And our website, lacd.org, that's the city's homepage on Drupal, we've utilized that data a lot. So, for example, instead of simply telling residents to call 311 if they want to report a bulky item pickup, we can tap into our call center data and show the resident how often the city has helped their neighborhood with bulky item pickups in the last month. We can tap into Rec and Parks data and publish interactive maps that show residents on a map their closest pools, libraries, parks, etc. We've connected to available APIs from USGS and released earthquake.lacd.org, which shows residents earthquakes that might have occurred in the last 24 hours in their neighborhood. It's something that Angelinos love to do. And incidentally, Drupal makes it very easy to create APIs and share data from your websites through APIs. It's a very API-forward focused application. We love that. Second area is chatbots and digital assistants. Again, the website is just one digital channel that we're trying, but ultimately our goal is to just connect residents with our government. Chatbots and digital assistants are another area that we're getting into. In 2017, we introduced our first chatbot, and now that has expanded to over 10 different installations of this chatbot, which receive thousands of questions a month, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And where we're going towards is personalization. Right now, we do offer some level of personalization. So on lacd.org, if you enter an address, we tap into engineering data and mapping data to return back to the user their council person, their trash pickup day, closest library, etc. But last November, the city also introduced a new concept called the Angelino Account. And this will be a single user ID and password that residents will be able to use to access an array of city services. We began with 2 systems in the spring, and we aim to have more in the future. The Angelino Account will be sort of the key to the city's digital front door. That's how we're explaining it. And so users will no longer have to juggle, okay, here's my user ID and password for the library, here's my user ID and password for signing up for a Rec and Parks class. So I'll just be kind of unified. And that will also help tailor website experiences to a logged in user. So we're very excited about those 3 areas in the future.
Great, great. In thinking back on your comments, you were talking about the fact that the system has allowed you to get your developers to do more developing. I'm curious, has the staff levels stayed the same? Have they grown? Do you expect them to grow in the future? Or, just the resources that you that make use of this key infrastructure, how do you see that and how has it gone? I think people would be interested. Everybody's always challenged with having enough resources to get the job done. And I'm curious, how you see this helping your resources.
Sure. We just got out of budget season, Otto, so it's very fresh in my mind getting resources. So, I mean, we're just like every other government organization where the staffing levels are based off of various different factors. I will say, though, that this has allowed our staff satisfaction with their jobs to arise. Like, our developers, allowing our developers to focus on what they were ostensibly hired to do, which is just develop, has, I think, helped a lot with our staff's excitement about their work. They don't want to come in and update a phone number or change someone's picture. They want to make that data interesting and engaging. So I will say that I think staff work and the work that we do, those meetings that we have are much more engaging, and so I think that's a positive, and that will lead to better staff retention in the future. It's all been received very well by our staff.
Yeah, I always felt developers I had under me, that's what they wanted to do, is develop, not do a bunch of administrative tasks, et cetera. They wanted the tools, and they wanted to do what they loved doing, which was develop things. I used to always say those were very creative people in reality, because they are creating systems that help people accomplish things. And
I did want to add one thing. Outside of just our development team, tapping into the Drupal larger community of Drupal, and that having our team kind of plug into that larger community of developers, trading code back and forth, sharing code, that was also a big, huge help. It's easy to kind of maybe feel like you're on an island, and you're just a team by yourself that needs to do something. But moving to that Drupal workspace introduced us to this huge and amazing community of other Drupal developers, which is also huge for our team as well.
Yeah, I think they can be proud if they contribute to that body of work that is Drupal. That's great. That's great. Hey, I want to switch to something that was always near and dear to my heart as a CIO, and that was, how do you measure success? And I'm curious, Jason, what sort of metrics or what approach did you take to feel like you were successful in what you ultimately accomplished through this content management system and the underlying Drupal platform, et cetera?
Sure, yeah. So I think normally people look at just website traffic and leave it at that. We wanted to go deeper, so we started soliciting user feedback about our website. So we have a user surveys on our website. We introduced Net Promoter Scores polls on our website. It's traditionally NPS scores. Net Promoter Scores are, for those that don't know, is mostly prominent in commercial spaces. It's a simple poll which measures customer satisfaction by asking them one question: how likely are you to recommend this product or service to others on a scale of 0 to 10? Right, it goes through an algorithm. Random people on our website are presented with that poll. They enter a number, and then it's recorded. And that goes through an algorithm, and you're presented with your Net Promoter Score, essentially. And this is giving us, so with a mix of the user feedback, NPS scores, we're also looking deeper into just traffic and seeing user journeys. So how do they enter the website? I think when you design a website, you think in your head, oh, they're obviously going to come in from the homepage into the homepage first, and then traverse around the site. But if you look deeper into the numbers, you'll see, well, they're not actually coming into the homepage. Most people are Googling something, and they end up on some tertiary page, or some page that you didn't think about. They end up on some blog that you posted, and then end up on the homepage somehow. But really going into the data and really studying that is the great metric to make data-driven design decisions, free from kind of any kind of bias. So and what we want to do in the future is increase our Net Promoter Score and increase user engagement. I have no illusions that a city website is probably not the most exciting thing for a resident to come to. They're not probably waking up in the morning and coming to our city website after they check their Facebook feed. But if they do need to come to our city website, I don't want it to be a place where they're just here to find phone number or something like that, and then leave. If at all possible, I want to be able to color that experience and give them data that they might find useful. So we're hoping to also increase our user engagement time on the site. And another metric actually that gets overlooked is our compliance with ADA guidelines. We routinely scan all the websites in our portfolio to make sure that they're compliant, and we want to ensure that remains 100% compliant going forward.
Yeah, I think that's great. Great point about ADA. I think that's something that sometimes gets forgotten about or doesn't get enough attention by folks, because it is challenging to meet the ADA requirements, but also important for those people that need that accommodation to be made. So kudos for Los Angeles for sticking with that and going after it. Jason talked a lot about the lessons learned, and one of the things that strikes me is the partnership between your two organizations. And so I think it would be good to hear about, from your perspective, Jason, how did you ultimately get to choosing Acquia, and what you were expecting from a partner that you ultimately selected. And then Ryan, I'm going to want you to come in afterwards and talk about your perspective of what makes a good partner in the way of a customer that you ultimately are going to work with to ensure there is success. So Jason, you're up first.
Sure. So, when we landed on Drupal being kind of the space that we wanted to get to, Acquia has been on the forefront of Drupal for so long and has pushed the technology in the community for so long that, at the time they were just a natural first choice for us to partner with back in 2015. And now, in 2021, in retrospect, in my experience with Acquia over the years, we found them to be a true partner. They really, truly helped guide our conversion into Drupal and on to Drupal 8 and into Drupal 9. Their technical account managers have been extremely helpful to us, and their guidance has been invaluable. And their support team has been really great, I got to say, and kept us alive during a lot of traffic spikes and whatnot. They do care about our journey in the same way that we do too.
Great. And Otto, glad I could make it back on for the partnership question after I got booted there for a few minutes. I think it was a connectivity issue on my end. But I think a lot of things Jason said align to what we think. We care about their journey, and they cared about the partnership. And I think that's one of the biggest things. I know it's simple, but the idea that Jason has done a great job forging relationships all throughout Acquia. And that is kind of one of the most critical things that needs to take place. And in any good relationship, there's clear and concise communication around certain things. Jason clearly had a vision around here where he wanted to go, but there were steps in that process and different folks who needed to weigh in, and there was transparency around what blockers came up, what events were happening, and that there could be deviation from the path that he had set out on, and that we're going to work through it together. So I think that is that's the foundation. And then second is really having a dialogue around what the long-term vision is and starting out on what the vision is and what you're trying to get to. I mean, one of the things that makes me smile so big when I talk to Jason is that they have NPS scores on what they're doing. They have true metrics and tracking. He said earlier that, we're not just tracking increase in web visits. Like, that's great. But that is basics. And so having those joint success metrics really helps a partner vendor like Acquia map to the right solutions. And I think one of the things that's also unique about the relationships that we created at Acquia is that there really isn't this concept of vendor lock-in. Jason talked about a lot of the service folks and you're using an open source platform that his team could at some point pick up and move somewhere else and put it on another infrastructure provider or another support provider. But we recognize that we have to support him in a way to retain his business in a way that others don't. So those are all things that I think go into a successful partnership with Acquia, but I think some of the principles around relationship building and metrics that Jason and roadmap that Jason has kind of outlined have made it really easy in some ways to help him, and we just ride the bumps together.
Yeah, great. Well, great segue into my next question, and that is, Jason, you've really looked towards the future, and I'm interested in what you see the future holds, or what you'd like to see in the future that would help you achieve, your vision, that will help you have more tools to potentially go after other things that maybe you haven't to date been able to tackle. Can you sort of, talk about futures some more for folks?
Sure. So, I tell my team that our real job isn't so much website development. We're trying to connect people with our government and using websites as our digital channel of choice at the moment. But it's important to remember that, new digital channels are coming on all the time. So if people want to engage with their government on social media, we've written a script where we scan all the social media accounts in the city, and we can see which hashtags are trending day to day. We have chatbots that, we're opening up our data to not only exist on the website, but we've opened up our data in a way that can be consumed by other digital channels. So if a chatbot needs to tap into some data that we've placed on our website, we can. We can share blogs that we've posted on our lacd.org account with digital speakers like Alexa or Google Home. The city has an official channel already we have an official app on those channels already, preparing for existing in that space in the future. And so this all comes down to opening up our data. When we create new content, we're thinking open first, so that when the next big channel arrives, we know our data is ready to push to that channel.
Hey, Jason, I have a follow-up question. Sorry to jump in here on that. One of the things that you talked about, you have the organizing the data, so it's kind of one constituent view with Angelino that you talked about. You've got the content right? You guys are in a great place. But then there's the personalization piece that lies in between, and how you start to action both of those things. Would love, we've had many conversations with government agencies like yours where they know that they want to do it, but there's this fear of getting it wrong. And there's an additional layer of scrutiny in terms of how the government provides personalized services versus in the commercial world. Can you talk folks on the line through what your first 2 or 3 conversations looked like when it came to personalization, and how you took the first steps in that journey? Because I think a lot of organizations and agencies we talk to are a bit paralyzed.
Yeah, definitely. So we began dipping our toes in that water by first. So currently, for example, if you go to our city website, we ask for an address, but we don't store it anywhere. But by providing an address, we know which neighborhood you're from. And so we can personalize the website to tailor towards that neighborhood's experience and their specific needs. So it's personalized not so much to the person, but to the neighborhood, You're right, though. Once it gets down to the person, it gets tricky. People are seemingly okay with giving their entire life details on Facebook, but it's a little creepy when a government does it, right? And so we're aware of that. So we're right now, I think where we're focusing on is placing the infrastructure, getting the infrastructure ready. We're using Okta as our tool of choice for that. And we've soft launched with 2 websites. One is a business related website, and one is a fire brush clearing app. So right now we're just kind of laying the foundation, and we're going to have those conversations about what data is okay to track, which data is not. We're going to be very open with residents once we do start down that phase. But I'm very excited about the future of what all that could mean for our websites and our experiences that we'd be able to provide for the future.
Yeah, I love that. I think it just gives folks a concrete starting point, like geographical personalization and setting, and then use case personalization. Like I think you said, the brush fires, people are going to obviously want to know about that.
Yeah.
And so it seems like it's an exercise, correct me if I'm wrong, when you've talked to your peers, of finding those places that would provide a tremendous amount of utility without feeling intrusive to the constituents. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, exactly. So, and the way we're doing that is first through geographical personalization first, and seeing if people are comfortable with that. They tend to be, and based on our research, that's a pretty popular part of our site, the neighborhood information. And, if they want to leave it at just that, that's fine. It's there. If people choose to provide more details, that's what we're doing right now. And we're creating the foundation for that as we speak. But I would recommend at the very least having at least a geographic level personalization feature on your sites.
Awesome. Otto, sorry to jump in there. Back to you.
Oh, no, that's great. And I'm going to switch here because we've got some good questions that have come in from the audience, and I'm sure others will have some. And so I encourage the audience to submit questions. And one that came up, and obviously, I was just kind of mentioning it, asked, how do you deal with cyber attacks in-house or use Acquia services only is the questions that got asked. But we'd be remiss if we didn't dive a little bit more into security. Have any thoughts on that, Jason?
Ryan, did you want to talk about? We've relied a lot on Acquia's security infrastructure for our higher profile sites, like the city's homepage, lacba.org. We also work with Acquia to include our software firewalls as well. Okay. And
yes.
So, yeah.
I was going to say, at the highest level, there are multiple layers of security within our stack, and there's a little bit of a notion sometimes that open source is not secure. It's a very age-old notion, because open source powers pretty much almost every digital website application in some capacity. Even commercial products use open source elements. So there are multiple layers within our stack. There's Drupal security, which has their own security team. There's Acquia, which has our own security team, and where we hold our own certifications, whether it's FedRAMP or PCI or HIPAA compliant. They're all part of our cloud, and we monitor both the infrastructure all the way through the application. And then when it comes to kind of advanced things like a bot attack, Acquia has another layer that sits in front of the application, which is a web application firewall. And we offer that as a service for customers who may need it. And then we can also integrate with other technologies. So if you have your own web application firewall or single sign-on technology that you want to use, there's a myriad of options. And then we also, in addition to kind of the application and infrastructure layer, we have different versions of our cloud to isolate applications. So many government organizations are okay with kind of shared infrastructure based on AWS's setup, but we also have virtual private cloud options and multi-region failover. So a variety of choices when it comes to security protocols. And just to give folks a little bit of peace of mind, in the Fed sector, we support the IRS website. We support actually the largest media event in the world, which is NBC Olympics, that runs all on the Acquia platform as well. So we have quite a bit of experience in terms of making sure sites are resilient and secure during some of their most critical times.
Great, great. Got a question here from another city in the U.S. Can you speak to the impact of internal services for city employees in terms of services, internal services by city employees in terms of services to employees? So internal systems that are working, whether it's for HR or other departments.
I'm not sure I understand the question, but is it speaking to, if the question is speaking to how we built sites, intranet websites, or
or exactly,
websites geared towards employees? Yeah, definitely. We've used Drupal to launch intranet websites as well. And it's been good. It's been a good setup.
Yeah, and maybe I can add on to that, Jason. We do have some and it really depends on your roadmap. That's one of the benefits, beauties of open source, where I think it's Brenda who asked the question where you might have an intranet solution that works for you, so you can keep that, and you can kind of use Drupal for all the other all the other sites and use cases Jason talked about. We do have a variety of organizations, because it's a content application framework, like I talked about in the beginning. An intranet is really about content and connectivity to backend systems and how that content is rendered to your employees. So Drupal we have many use cases that have applied to intranets or employee experience as well. And we're seeing more and more of that across the board, because there's a need to have one consistent voice. And Jason talked quite a bit about assisted experiences. And we know that a constituent's journey often will be with a person, it will be assisted, and it might be digital only. So the same content needs to be sought after by an employee who's answering that question versus someone when it's in a digital only channel. So those two things really are coming together, and that content for the constituent experience and then the employee experience are really becoming more and more one.
And just to add to that, I think standardizing on a platform is a much easier discussion when you're talking about the intranet versus the internet, obviously. So if you can get your city departments to kind of use Drupal as that singular platform, it's all the better. What we did, actually, now that you bring it up, obviously our intention at first was just launching intranet websites, but as the departments started to see, how easy it is to use Drupal and how well it served them, and how much better their internet sites were than their intranet sites, we were able to much more easily have that discussion about, let's move your intranet sites to Drupal as well. And once we were able to do that, we were able to share data amongst all these sites a lot more easier, just because of how the Drupal infrastructure works, things like that.
Yeah, it's far less IT infrastructure that you have to manage over time, et cetera. Great. Well, I want to be cognizant of our hour commitment today, folks, so we're going to have to wrap it up here. First of all, a big thanks to Jason and Ryan for their great insights on this really important topic for government. And also, I want to thank Acquia as a sponsor that made this discussion possible today. And of course, I want to thank our audience for spending their time with us today. And we look forward to seeing you again on another government technology event. Take care, everyone, and stay safe.